Hey everyone. You know when you have this goal in mind and you would do anything to do it, but you just feel so discouraged that you would just can't make it there. It's impossible to follow your dream. It's just too extreme. Well, I've been kind of feeling that way lately, and then I came across this one story that really inspired me and kind of got me thinking that I can do it after all. So I thought I'd share my inspirational story with you today. Okay, so this was in an earth science class, and I was really happy because I was so sleepy and just totally out of it this morning, and we were going to watch a movie, so I was pretty stoked from the beginning. It's the same class that I burnt myself in last week with hydrochloric acid, which was kind of scary. Alright, so the movie that we watched was the life story of Gene Shoemaker. And for all you who don't know who that is, he's a geologist that's very famous and actually did amazing things in his life and made many historical discoveries and was just an amazing guy. So it was really cool to look at his life and see his attitude and see how he went about following his dreams. Okay, so the first thing that we learned about Gene was he was the first person to prove that meteors hit the Earth and create big impacts. Before this, everyone was just really skeptical, and they thought all of the big craters and stuff in the Earth were from volcanic eruptions. And this is true for some of them, but for the majority, it was meteorites hitting the Earth, which is actually a very frequent thing. But because of plate tectonics and erosion and just things from our atmosphere, they either disappear into the Earth or are eroded away, so we can't tell just how many meteorites have hit the Earth. Now, I've always been kind of a science buff, so this was pretty exciting. I remember doing like projects on the planets when I was a little kid and stuff, and I just love that we're going back into the planets. It's really exciting because I thought it would be all about soils and minerals and stuff, and it is, but it's about like extraterrestrial life and everything too. Well, we're learning about like the study of life outside of Earth, which is actually a really popular scientific field nowadays, which is really exciting that they have that much evidence this is an actually flourishing field of science. Like, it blows my mind. It's crazy. It's so cool we're learning about it. But yeah, anyways, back to the subject. Okay, so how he proved that meteors have hit the Earth and created these giant craters, not just the little tiny ones, because that was already proven that we just get the little ones, but like the huge, like miles wide ones. Well, it was all from this one mineral that was previously unknown before he discovered it, called cosite. That's cool. Yeah. So he discovered this one mineral called cosite, which is a really compact quartz, and it's like a glass, dark black glass. You would find this stuck in meteors, like little pieces of meteors, and in these giant craters and stuff. And the only way that this material could be produced was a super high-speed, hard impact. And the only way that could happen on the Earth, because it's way more than the force of a volcano and all the pressures to do with that and the magma and everything, it's way past that level, it's way harder, would be a meteorite hitting the Earth. So that was the first thing of proof he had. Now, the second, he actually proved it, like, for good and everyone believed him and stuff, was he went to a trip to Germany. I forget what the town was called, but the entire town is built in this giant crater site. Like, it's this huge circle town. It's so weird. And they have a church there in the middle that him and his wife went to, and he was looking for more evidence to prove his theory. And he found it there on the church walls, which is really cool. He was just looking at it, and he began to see specks of this cosite, which the only way it can get there is a meteorite hitting the Earth. And he found out that the church had been built 500 years ago with the raw materials around the area, in the crater area. So the church was actually built of meteorite rock. So that was really cool. So he was able to prove to the scientific community that his theory was right. And the main thing that this was good for was, at the same time, he was talking to NASA because it was his lifelong dream to go to the moon and to do geology there and to test out the rocks and see the craters and prove his theory, because what better place to prove your theory of how these craters got there than the moon, where there's no atmosphere, no like erosion and stuff, and there's no plate tectonics, so they can't go anywhere. You get to see every little thing that's ever happened to the surface. But not only did he do all this, he actually was involved in a major historic event that happens not just in one lifetime, but maybe once in a millennium. Okay, so him and his wife always had their own little observatory, and they would watch the meteors and chart them and make sure that they're not going to hit the earth anytime soon, just to give the people forewarning. Yeah, meteorites, if they're big enough, they're the only natural thing that could cause the entire earth to be wiped out, all the people to be gone. So they're a huge threat. And one night, when they were watching the skies, I think his wife was the first one to spot it actually, but she was looking at Jupiter. And usually you see on these printouts of what they're seeing on the big telescope, you see a big shadow of Jupiter, and then you see shadows of the shining stars beside it. And there was something really weird on the film. And usually when you see a meteorite, you see like something really dark, but it's kind of like, woo, because it's moving, so you can see the shadows. And she saw one of these, but it was like huge, and it was really bright, way more bright than usual. And she didn't know what it was. They sent it over to another observatory that had a larger telescope, and he was just in shock whenever he got the thing back showing what it was. He said this was an enormous comet that within 14 months was going to collide with Jupiter. And they ended up naming it SL9 after Shoemaker-Levy 9, because there was 9 huge chunks of rock in the comet. And like, to give you an idea of the scale of this thing, one of the rocks, one of the bigger ones, was more than half the size of the Earth. So this is a pretty darn big rock. And this was heading towards the surface of Jupiter. They took this to NASA, and of course everyone was so excited because you never get to see an actual impact of a giant comet hitting a planet. It just doesn't happen usually, and it's so hard. We've never had the technology to record it before, so it's super exciting. And yeah, they watched it and got ready for it, and they ended up, like, they had all these theories about it'll just go straight through Jupiter because it's a gas planet and all this, but it ended up being like a huge explosion and left a huge crater on Jupiter. So yeah, pretty much everything he's ever said about geology was proved. He just never gave up on his dreams, and he reached all of them. And it's such an amazing story. So it's like, if we're just thinking we can't do little things like, I don't know, find a job, pass a test, that kind of stuff, then we're really limiting ourselves, because if he can accomplish all this amazing stuff that's just, people couldn't even imagine it happening, then I'm sure we can accomplish that if we set our minds to it. So yeah, it was just a really cool movie, and it was really interesting and totally inspiring. So I wanted to share it with you guys, and I hope it inspired you at least a little. And yeah, thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you guys real soon. Bye!